Dawn bled gray across frozen Montana prairie. Caleb Thorne rode the fence line, breath misting white, checking posts the blizzard had cracked. Wind cut through his coat. Below, a cottonwood stood black against snow, and beneath it, something wrong. A horse. Reins twisted around a low branch, coat slicked with frost. The animal's eyes rolled wild. Caleb dismounted. His boots broke through ice crust with sounds like bones snapping. Then he heard it. A child's breathing. Ragged, wet. The boy lay curled under exposed roots, wrapped in a baby blanket the color of creek ice. His lips were blue. Frost had formed in his hair. A scrap of paper fluttered from the wool, pinned with a thorn. Please save him. Caleb lifted the child. So light. Too light. The blanket came too, small fingers wouldn't let go, and when the fabric shifted, he caught a scent beneath the cold. Beeswax. Faint but unmistakable. Something was sewn inside. The cabin door stuck from the cold. Caleb kicked it open, the boy limp in his arms. Inside, the fire he'd left had burned down to coals. He laid the child on his cot and fed kindling to the hearth. Flames caught, heat spread slow. The boy didn't move. Caleb stripped off the wet clothes, shirt threadbare, pants too big, boots worn through at the sole. The small body was pale as candle wax, ribs showing, bruises yellowed along the left side, old ones. He wrapped the child in wool blankets, tucked him close to the fire, and set water to boil. The blanket, the blue one, lay folded beside the cot. Even damp, the stitching showed quality. French knots along the edge, work that took months to learn, not frontier hands. Caleb lifted it to the lamplight. The fabric smelled of cold and fear and something else. He pressed the lining. Stiff paper crinkled beneath his thumb, sealed with wax. A document. Hidden. The kettle whistled. He poured hot water into a bowl, added a rag, and cleaned the child's face. Dirt came away in streaks. Underneath, the boy was maybe 4, maybe 5. Dark hair, gray eyes that didn't open. "Come on, son," Caleb murmured. "Stay with me." The boy's chest rose, fell, rose again. Outside, the horse he'd brought back nickered from the barn. Caleb had rubbed her down, given her hay and water, quality stock. Someone's prize mare, not a drifter's nag. He spooned warm broth between the boy's lips. Most of it ran down his chin, but some went in. The small throat moved, swallowed. "That's it," Caleb said. "That's good." An hour passed, 2. The boy's skin lost its blue tint. His breathing deepened. Caleb sat by the cot, rifle across his knees, and stared at the blanket. At the hidden pocket in the lining, he could open it, tear the seam, find out what someone thought worth hiding in a child's only comfort. But the stitching was his mother's work, and tearing it felt wrong. The boy's eyelids fluttered. "Mama?" The word came thin as thread. Caleb leaned forward. "You're safe now. You're warm." The gray eyes opened, unfocused. "Mama said, find the oak." "What oak, son?" "Where Papa carved—" The boy's hand clutched the blanket edge. "Don't leave me." "I won't." Caleb pulled the wool higher. "I got you." The boy's eyes closed again. This time his face eased into sleep instead of unconsciousness. Caleb exhaled. His hands shook. He hadn't held a child since... He stood fast, paced to the window. Outside, snow had started again, soft, steady, the kind that buried tracks. By morning, no one would know where the boy had come from. Maybe that was mercy. Dr. Elias Harrison set his stethoscope aside and shook his head. "Pneumonia, left lungs half flooded." Caleb stood in the corner of the doc's cramped office, hat in hands. The boy lay on the examination table, wrapped in the blue blanket, eyes closed. His breathing rattled. "What's he need?" Caleb asked. "Quinine tincture, camphor rub, warmth and thyme." Harrison wiped his glasses. $40. I'd front it, but the supply wagon don't run charity. $40. Caleb's spring seed money. "I'll have it by sundown," Harrison nodded. "Caleb, where'd you find him?" "Under a cottonwood, mile north of my fence line." "Alone?" "Just him and a horse." The doc's eyes moved to the blanket, to the fine stitching. "That's not frontier work." "I know." "You report this to the marshal?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "Not yet." "You should. Boy this young, someone's looking for him. Or someone left him." The door opened without a knock. Vernon Latimer filled the frame. Big man, 58, surveyor's chain draped over one shoulder like a badge. His eyes went straight to the boy. "Heard you brought in a stray, Thorne." Caleb moved between Vernon and the table. "Found him half frozen." "Mighty charitable." Vernon stepped closer. The floorboards creaked under his weight. "Boy got a name?" "Didn't say." Vernon's hand reached toward the blanket. His fingers brushed the blue wool. His hand trembled. It was brief, half a second, but Caleb saw it. Vernon's jaw clenched, and he pulled back like the fabric burned. "Where'd you find him, exactly?" Vernon's voice had changed, gone careful. "By Dry Creek, under a log." "Your side of the property line or mine?" The question came too fast, too sharp. "Didn't measure," Caleb said. "Just brought him here." Vernon nodded slowly. His eyes stayed on the blanket, on the stitching, on something he recognized. "Well," he turned toward the door. "Good Christian work, Thorne, but strays got owners. Best be careful you don't keep what ain't yours." He left. Boot heels loud on the plank floor. Dr. Harrison exhaled. "What's Vernon want with a sick child?" Caleb looked at the boy's pale face, at the blanket clutched in small, cold fingers. "Don't know yet," he said, "but I'll find out before he does." The land office sat at the north end of Main Street, two-story clapboard with a false front. Caleb tied his horse and froze. A notice hung on the door, large enough to read from the boardwalk. Fresh ink, still wet at the edges. Caleb Thorne, harboring stolen property, child plus horse. Reward for return to Vernon Latimer, county surveyor. Blood roared in Caleb's ears. Around him the morning crowd moved slower. Heads turned. Whispers rose like steam off frozen ground. Old man Jessup, who'd sold him fence wire last month, studied his boots. The mercantile owner's wife crossed the street rather than pass him. Only Silas Grant, the blacksmith, met his eyes and gave a curt nod. Caleb climbed the steps, ripped the notice down, crumpled it, shoved through the land office door. Vernon sat behind his oak desk, surveyor's chain coiled on the corner like a sleeping snake. He didn't look up from his ledger. The scratch of his pen filled the silence. "That's county property, Thorne. Defacing public notices is a misdemeanor." Caleb slammed the crumpled paper on the desk. "That boy's not stolen. He was dying." "Doesn't change the law." Vernon closed the ledger, slow, deliberate. "My cousin, Thomas Latimer, holds an indentured contract on a child matching that description. Boy ran off 3 weeks ago. Thomas posted reward across the territory." "I never saw any posting. Don't need to see it for the law to apply." Vernon leaned back. His chair creaked. "Return the child, no questions asked, or I involve Marshal Greer." Caleb's hands curled into fists. The smell of ink and dust pressed close. "Let me talk to your cousin, man to man." "Thomas is in Red Fork. Won't return till April." Vernon pulled a blank form from his drawer. "But I can hold the child in county custody till then, for his safety." "Like hell." "Language, Thorne." Vernon laid the form flat. "I'm prepared to be reasonable. You sign temporary guardianship over to me. I'll see the boys fed and warmed till Thomas arrives. Otherwise—" He gestured toward the window, toward the street where the notice had hung. "Town's already talking. How long you think charity lasts when folks believe you're a thief?" Caleb stared at the form, at Vernon's ink-stained fingers holding the pen steady. "I need 3 days." Vernon's eyebrows rose. 4? "To find out who that boy really is." Silence stretched. Outside, a wagon rattled past. Vernon tapped the pen against the desk. Once, twice, the sound sharp as a nail driving. 3 days, he said finally. "Then I file with the marshal. And Thorne." His eyes were cold. "Keep that blanket safe. It's material evidence." Caleb turned and walked out, his boot heels loud on the plank floor. On the boardwalk, Maeve Corrigan waited, arms crossed, shawl pulled tight. She was 52, gray threading her dark hair, ran the only boarding house that didn't ask questions. "Saw the notice," she said quietly. The wind carried the smell of lye soap from her apron. Vernon's got half the merchants believing him, other half's waiting to see which way the wind blows. Caleb exhaled, his breath misted. "Boy's got pneumonia, needs $40 in medicine." Maeve reached into her apron pocket, pulled out a small leather purse, pressed it into his hand. 60. Take it." "Maeve, don't." Her voice was firm. "I lost my boy to typhoid 10 years back. Would have given every coin I had for one more day with him." Her eyes glistened. "You saved that child, Caleb Thorne. Let me help." He closed his fingers around the purse, his throat tight. "Thank you." She nodded. "Now get that medicine. And Caleb?" She glanced toward the land office. "Watch Vernon. Man doesn't fight that hard for someone else's property unless it's really his." The cabin looked smaller in the failing light. Caleb rode up with medicine tied to his saddle and saw Vernon's horse hitched to the porch rail. His gut twisted. Inside, the fire crackled low. The boy lay on the cot, blanket tucked to his chin, breathing ragged but steady. Vernon stood by the hearth holding a rolled document sealed with red wax. "Didn't invite you in," Caleb said. He set the medicine on the table. "Didn't need invitation." Vernon unrolled the document. The paper crackled. "This is a county eviction notice, Thorne. Effective today, you've got 90 days to vacate this property." The room tilted. "What?" Vernon laid the paper flat, smoothed it with one hand. "According to territorial land records, this property was deeded to Amos Latimer in 1875 under the Homestead Act. Amos was my brother, died in 79, left the deed to me." He tapped the document. "Your claim dates to 1880. Mine's older, mine's legal." Caleb's vision blurred. "That's a lie. I filed this claim 7 years ago. Worked every inch." "Then you filed wrong." Vernon's voice was flat, bureaucratic. "County surveyor reviewed the boundaries last week. Your fence line's inside my deed marker by 400 yards. That makes this cabin, this barn, your corral, mine." "You're the county surveyor." "Exactly." Vernon's smile was thin. "So when I say the boundaries are off, they're off." He rolled the document back. "You've got till April 15th. After that, Marshal Greer escorts you off what is legally Latimer land." Caleb's hands shook. 20 years. 20 years clearing stumps, mending fence, surviving winters that killed weaker men. His wife's grave was 50 yards from this door. "Why now?" His voice came hoarse. Vernon glanced at the boy on the cot. "Because you've got something that belongs to me, and I'm tired of asking." "The boy." "The boy. The blanket." Vernon stepped closer. The smell of whiskey and sweat came with him. "I know what's sewn in that lining, Thorne. My niece, Sarah Latimer. She had a habit of hiding things in needlework." "Clever girl." His jaw tightened. "Too clever." Caleb's breath caught. "Niece." "Sarah's dead," Vernon continued. "Died in childbirth 4 years ago. Left behind a son." He pointed at the cot. "That son. And something else. Something she stole from me." "A land grant," Caleb said slowly. Pieces falling together. Vernon's face darkened. "That document's a forgery. Sarah never owned land. It's rightfully mine, and I'll see it destroyed before any bastard child claims what I've built." Silence pressed heavy. The fire popped. "So here's the trade," Vernon said. "Give me the boy and the blanket. I'll tear up this eviction. You keep your land. Nobody gets hurt." Caleb looked at the boy, small, fragile, fevered, and thought of the note. "Please, save him." "No," he said. Vernon's face went cold. "You've got 90 days, Thorne. Then you'll have nothing. No land. No home." He moved to the door. "And I'll still take the boy." The door slammed. The boy whimpered in his sleep. Caleb sank into a chair, head in hands. The eviction notice glared white on the table. Outside, the wind picked up. Snow began to fall again. Maeve Corrigan arrived at dawn with a pot of chicken broth and sharp eyes. She set the pot on the stove, ladled a bowl, and crouched beside the cot where the child slept. "How's he faring?" Her voice was low. The smell of herbs and onion filled the cabin. "Fever broke an hour ago." Caleb sat by the fire, sleepless, rifle across his lap. First good sign. Maeve touched the boy's forehead, nodded. Then her gaze dropped to the blanket. Blue wool, edge-stitched with tiny perfect loops. "May I?" Caleb hesitated, nodded. Maeve lifted the blanket carefully, held it to the morning light slanting through the window. Her fingers traced the stitching, French knots, each one uniform, spaced like beadwork. "This wasn't made by Frontier hands," she murmured. "This is finishing schoolwork. East Coast, maybe European." "Finishing school?" Caleb frowned. "My mother taught needlework in Philadelphia before we came west. This pattern," she pointed to the edge, "takes 6 months to learn. Only wealthy girls had time for it." Caleb leaned closer. The stitches were so small they looked like pearls. "Vernon said his niece made it, Sarah Latimer." Maeve's eyes widened. "Sarah? I remember her. Came to town 5 years ago. Pregnant. No husband. Vernon wouldn't let her stay at his house." She paused. "She lived in a room above the mercantile till she died," Caleb finished. 4 years ago, in childbirth." Maeve's hand covered her mouth. "Dear God, this boy's Sarah's son." They both looked at the child. His chest rose and fell steady now, color returning to his cheeks. Vernon said she stole something from him, Caleb said. A land grant, sewn in this blanket. Maeve ran her thumb along the lining seam, pressed gently. Here. Her voice went quiet. Feel that? Stiff paper, sealed with something. Beeswax, Caleb said. I smelled it when I found him. Maeve's face hardened. If Sarah hid a land grant, it's because Vernon tried to steal it. That man's been boundary shifting for years. Everyone knows. She looked up. But he's the surveyor. Who's going to challenge him? I am, Caleb said. Then you'll need help and proof. A sound came from the cot. Soft whimper. Both turned. The boy's eyes fluttered open, gray as winter sky. He blinked at the firelight, at Maeve's face, at Caleb's. Where's Mama? The voice was thin, scared. Caleb knelt beside the cot. The floorboards creaked under his weight. You're safe, son. What's your name? The boy's lip trembled. James. Mama called me James. Maeve's eyes glistened. She touched the boy's hair gently. James is a fine name. Mama said... The boy's small hand clutched the blanket. Mama said, find the oak where Papa carved our name. She said the land remembers. Caleb and Maeve exchanged glances. Do you know where this oak is? Caleb asked. James shook his head. Mama drew it once. Big tree, split by lightning. Maeve stood. I'll ask around, quietly, see if anyone remembers an oak like that. She squeezed Caleb's shoulder. Her hand was warm. You did right, Caleb. Don't let Vernon convince you otherwise. After she left, James sat up slowly. Caleb brought him broth. The boy sipped, hands shaking, but he didn't spill. Are you my papa now? James asked. Caleb's chest tightened. I'm just helping till we find your people. Mama said if something happened, find the man who helps. James's eyes were too old for his face. You helped. Caleb didn't have words for that. He just pulled the blanket higher and watched the boy drink. Outside, a crow called once, then silence. The rider appeared mid-morning, tall, lean black man in a worn Union Pacific coat, gray beard trimmed close. He dismounted slowly, joints stiff, and knocked twice on the cabin door. Caleb opened it, rifle in hand. Name's Isaac Drummond, the man said. His voice was deep, even. Maeve Corrigan sent me. Caleb lowered the rifle. Come in. Inside, Isaac removed his hat, nodded to James sitting by the fire, wrapped in the blanket. The smell of wood smoke and coffee filled the space. Heard you got trouble with Vernon Latimer. More than trouble, Caleb said. He's trying to take my land. And this boy. Isaac pulled a rolled canvas from inside his coat, laid it on the table. Worked 30 years for Union Pacific, laid track from Omaha to Oregon. Part of my job was surveying, every mile logged, every landmark recorded. He unrolled the canvas. It was a map, hand-drawn, meticulous, lines representing rivers, ridges, property markers, trees drawn as tiny symbols with notes beside them. This is the 1883 Montana Territory Survey, Isaac said. Every boundary stake, every oak, every creek bend, railroad needed precision, wrong measurement, locomotive derails. Caleb's breath caught. Does it show property lines? Every single one, including Latimer Holdings. Isaac's finger traced a section. Vernon's official county records say his brother Amos claimed 320 acres here in 1875. He tapped the map. But this survey, done in '83, shows those markers 400 yards east of where Vernon's got them now. He moved them, Caleb said. Blood pounded in his ears. Shifted every stake after the railroad survey was filed. Probably figured nobody'd check. Isaac looked up. His eyes were hard. But maps don't lie. Problem is, proving fraud takes more than a map. Takes witnesses, takes legal standing. The boy, Caleb said slowly. James. If Sarah owned land adjacent to Vernon's and she left it to her son, then the boy's got legal standing to challenge Vernon's boundaries. Isaac nodded. But you'd need Sarah's deed, original document, not some county clerk's copy Vernon could alter. Caleb's eyes moved to the blanket draped over James's shoulders. We've got it, he said. Sewn in that blanket, sealed with beeswax. Isaac studied the boy, then Caleb. Then you've got a chance. But move fast. Vernon finds out you've got proof, he'll burn this cabin and call it accident. James looked up, eyes wide. Will the bad man hurt Papa? The word stopped Caleb cold. Papa. Isaac's face softened. Not if we're smart, son. Caleb cleared his throat. What do we need? 3 things. Isaac ticked them off on calloused fingers. 1. Open that blanket. Get the deed out without destroying it. 2. Find that boundary oak the boy mentioned. If it's on the map, it's proof. 3. Get testimony. Maeve's quilting circle, Reverend Holcomb, anyone who remembers Sarah. And then? Then we wait for Judge Harlan's circuit. He's due in 6 weeks. Territorial judge. Can override county surveyors. Isaac rolled the map back. Till then, you keep that boy close, and that rifle closer. He stood, settled his hat. Maps don't lie, son. If that oak exists, it's on my survey. And if Vernon moved stakes, I'll prove it. Caleb walked him to the door. The morning air was sharp, cold enough to burn lungs. Thank you, Caleb said. Isaac gripped his shoulder. Just keep breathing till the judge arrives. He rode off. James came to stand beside Caleb in the doorway. Will we win? The boy asked. Caleb looked at the horizon, at the empty land Vernon claimed to own. We're going to try. Marshal Tate Greer rode up 3 days later. Federal star glinted on his coat. He was a hard man, 56, who'd kept peace in Montana Territory since before statehood talk. He dismounted with the slow reluctance of someone delivering bad news. Caleb. His breath misted in the cold air. Marshal. Caleb stood on the porch, James behind him, peering through the doorway. Greer pulled a folded paper from his vest. The sound of it unfolding was loud in the morning quiet. Got a warrant here. Vernon Latimer's filed charges. Document theft and child endangerment. Caleb's stomach dropped. That's a lie. Maybe. Greer's face was neutral. But it's signed by County Judge Morrison. Says you're harboring a child without legal guardianship and refusing to surrender property, specifically a blanket believed to contain stolen county documents. That blanket belongs to the boy. His mother made it. Then you won't mind handing it over for evidence review. Greer's hand rested on his belt, near the revolver. Makes this easier for everyone. Caleb's pulse roared. You take that blanket, Vernon destroys what's inside. You know that. I know the law says I enforce warrants, not judge them. Greer's voice softened. Caleb, I'm trying to help. Give me the blanket. I'll log it as evidence, lock it in the county safe. Judge Harlan arrives in 6 weeks. He'll decide ownership. 6 weeks in Vernon's hands. 6 weeks protected by territorial custody law. Vernon can't touch it without a judge's order. Greer stepped closer. The smell of leather and gun oil came with him. Or I arrest you right now for obstruction. The boy goes to county orphan holding, and the blanket disappears anyway. Silence. Inside, James's small voice. Papa. Caleb closed his eyes. Papa. The word felt like a knife and a blessing at once. All right, he said hoarsely, but I want it logged. Every stitch, every seal, witnessed. Greer nodded. Maeve Corrigan can witness. Isaac Drummond, too, if you want. Caleb went inside, lifted the blanket from James's cot. The boy's hands shot out, clutching. No, Mama made it. I know, son. Caleb knelt, his voice broke. But the marshal needs to keep it safe. We'll get it back. James's eyes filled with tears, but he let go. Outside, Maeve and Isaac arrived, summoned by some invisible frontier telegraph. They stood witness as Greer unfolded the blanket, examined the stitching, pressed the lining where the stiff paper lay hidden. Sealed pocket, Greer noted aloud. Beeswax. Intact. He glanced at Caleb. You want me to open it? No, Caleb said. Not till the judge. Greer folded the blanket, wrapped it in oilcloth, tied it with cord. Maeve signed the evidence log. Isaac added his mark. This goes in the county safe tonight, Greer said. He tied the bundle to his saddle. Vernon can file motions, but he can't touch it. He mounted. The horse shifted under his weight. One more thing, Greer said, looking down. Vernon's filing kidnapping charges if you don't surrender the boy by week's end. Says the child's under indentured contract to his cousin Thomas. Thomas Latimer doesn't exist, Isaac said flatly. I checked Red Fork. No record of him. Greer's eyes narrowed. That's so. That's so. The marshal exhaled slowly. Steam rose from his lips. Then we got a problem, because Vernon's got county clerks backing his story, and I got a warrant that says otherwise. He tipped his hat. Keep the boy safe, Caleb, but I got no choice. If Vernon pushes this to kidnapping, I'll have to act. He rode off. The blanket disappeared into the morning light. James stood in the doorway. Tears streaked his face. Will we get Mama's blanket back? Caleb pulled him close. Yeah, son, we will. But the weight in his chest said otherwise. The land office couldn't hold everyone. Townspeople spilled onto the boardwalk, crowding the doorway, craning to hear. The smell of wet wool and tobacco smoke pressed thick. Vernon stood behind his desk like a judge, surveyor's chain coiled on the corner, ledger open. Caleb entered last. Maeve and Isaac flanked him. Hostile eyes tracked him. Pitying eyes looked away. Thank you all for coming, Vernon began. His voice carried. We're here to address a matter of public concern, the legal status of the child currently residing with Caleb Thorne. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vernon opened the ledger. 4 years ago, my niece, Sarah Latimer, died in childbirth. She left behind a son. He paused. Let it sink in. That son is the boy in Caleb's care. Gasps, whispers. Caleb's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Sarah, Vernon continued, was deeded 320 acres by her father, my brother Amos, in 1882. Upon her death, that land passed to her son. As the child's only living relative and legal guardian under territorial law, I've been administering the estate. Administering or stealing? Isaac's voice cut through the room. Vernon's eyes narrowed. Mr. Drummond, I understand you've been spreading rumors about property lines. Let me be clear. County surveyor records are official. Railroad maps are not. Railroad maps don't lie, Isaac shot back. Yours do. Vernon ignored him, addressed the crowd. Caleb Thorne found the boy and has refused to surrender him to proper legal custody. Why? He let the question hang. Because that child represents 320 acres of prime land. Caleb's own homestead is under eviction. He's desperate. He sees the boy as a way to claim Sarah's estate through manipulation. That's a damn lie. Caleb stepped forward. The floorboards creaked. I'm protecting him from you. Then why, Vernon said smoothly, did you refuse to let Marshall Greer take the child to county holding, where he'd be safe and fed and away from this conflict of interest? Silence. Because, Maeve said loudly, you'd kill that boy the moment he was alone, just like you killed Sarah. The room erupted. Vernon's face darkened. Sarah died of childbirth fever, he said coldly. Tragic, but natural. Implying murder is slander, Mrs. Corrigan. Maeve's fists clenched. You forced her into poverty, denied her medical care. That's murder where I'm from. Vernon turned to the crowd, His face was calm now, reasonable. This is exactly the hysteria I'm trying to prevent. The boy deserves a stable home, legal guardianship, and his inheritance protected. He paused. I propose a vote. Does this town recommend Caleb Thorne surrender the child to county custody pending Judge Harlan's review? You can't vote on a child, Caleb said. His voice shook. It's advisory, Vernon replied, but it'll carry weight with the judge. Hands rose, slowly, reluctantly. Some looked ashamed. Some looked relieved. Caleb counted them. His world narrowed to numbers. 12 in favor, 8 against. Reverend Holcomb stood near the back, hands clasped. I abstain, he said quietly. I must pray on this. Caleb felt the floor drop away. 12. 12 people, neighbors, people he'd helped raise barns for, traded horses with, now believed Vernon's lies. Vernon closed the ledger. The sound was final. The recommendation passes. Marshall Greer will be informed. Caleb, you've got till Sunday. After that, the law acts. The crowd dispersed. Some touched Caleb's shoulder, brief, apologetic, most avoided his eyes. Outside, the wind had picked up, carried the smell of coming snow. Isaac gripped Caleb's arm. Don't give up. Town just voted against me, Caleb said. His voice was hollow. Town's scared, Maeve corrected. Vernon controls their credit, their property lines, their livelihoods. Fear makes cowards. Caleb looked at the empty street, at the land office where Vernon's shadow moved behind lamplight. 4 days, he said. Then I lose everything. Maeve stepped in front of him, made him look at her. Not everything. You've still got that boy. You've still got us, and you've still got the truth. Truth didn't win today. No, Isaac said. But the vote did, and we just learned something valuable. What? 8 people voted for you. That's 8 witnesses who'll testify Vernon's lying. Isaac's eyes were hard. And 12, who'll have to live with themselves when the truth comes out. James appeared in the doorway of Maeve's boarding house across the street. He'd been waiting there during the meeting. His face was pale. Caleb crossed to him, knelt down. "You all right, son? Did they say you have to give me away?" "They recommended it, but recommendations aren't law." "What's law?" Caleb pulled him close. "Law's what Judge Harlan says, and he's not here yet." James's arms wrapped around his neck, tight. "I don't want a new papa." Caleb's eyes burned. "You won't get one." But even as he said it, the doubt crept in. 4 days. Then the marshal would come, and the law, Vernon's law, would take James away. The knock came after dark, soft, hesitant. Caleb opened the door to find Reverend Samuel Holcomb standing in the cold, hat in hands, his breath misted white. "Reverend." "May I come in?" Caleb stepped aside. The old man moved slowly to the fire, warming gnarled hands. James sat at the table, drawing with charcoal on scrap paper, horses, trees, a lightning-split oak. "I'm sorry I didn't speak today," Holcomb began. His voice was rough. "At the meeting, I should have. You abstained. Cowardice dressed as prudence." The Reverend's shoulders sagged. The smell of old wool and candle wax clung to him. "But I'm here now, and I need to tell you something." Caleb sat across from him, waited. Holcomb glanced at James, then leaned forward. "I married Sarah Latimer in 1882. Private ceremony, just her and a young man named Daniel Foster, railroad worker." He paused. "He died 6 months later, tunnel collapse near Butte. Vernon said she died unwed. Vernon lied." The Reverend's jaw tightened. "Sarah came to me after Daniel's death. She was pregnant, scared. Vernon had already tried to claim her inheritance, 320 acres her father left her. She told me Vernon forged documents, moved boundary stakes, bribed clerks." Caleb's hands curled on the table. "Why didn't she fight him?" "She tried. County judge ruled against her. Vernon's the surveyor, his word against hers." Holcomb's eyes glistened in the firelight. "She came to me one last time, 3 weeks before she died, said if anything happened to her I had to testify, had to tell the truth about her marriage, about Vernon's fraud. And you stayed silent." "I was afraid." The words came broken, quiet. "Vernon threatened to revoke the church's tax exemption, said he'd run me out of the county. He looked at the fire. "I told myself it didn't matter. Sarah was dying. The boy was too young to claim anything, but I was wrong." Silence pressed heavy. A log cracked. Sparks flew. James looked up from his drawing. "Did you know my mama?" Holcomb turned. His face crumpled. "I did, son. She was a good woman. Kind. Strong." "Mama said the land remembers," James whispered, "even when people forget." The Reverend exhaled shakily. She was right. Caleb stood, paced to the window. Outside, snow fell in thick curtains. "Judge Harlan comes in 4 weeks. If you testify—" "I will." Holcomb's voice was firm now. "Vernon can do his worst, but Sarah made me promise. If anything happened to her, I'd testify the truth. I'm ready to keep that promise." Caleb extended his hand. Holcomb shook it. His grip trembled but held certain. "Thank you," Caleb said. After the Reverend left, James climbed into Caleb's lap, small arms wrapped around his neck. "Will the bad man take me away?" Caleb held him close. "Not while I'm breathing, son." But outside, the wind howled, and 4 days felt like nothing at all. Maeve's boarding house dining room smelled of lye soap and lavender. 5 women sat around the long table, quilting needles flashing under lamplight, voices low. They looked up when Caleb entered, wary, measuring. "Ladies," Maeve said, "this is Caleb Thorne. He needs to see the ledger." An older woman, Mrs. Adelaide Grant, the blacksmith's mother, nodded slowly. "Maeve vouches for you. That's enough." From beneath the table, Maeve pulled a leather-bound book, pages thick with ink. She opened it, and Caleb saw columns, names, dates, events, births, marriages, deaths, property transactions. "We've kept this for 30 years, Maeve said. "Every woman here contributes. Anytime someone pays property tax, borrows money, files a deed, we write it down." She tapped the page. "It's how we know who owes what, who's honest, who's not." Caleb scanned the entries. His own name appeared. Caleb Thorne, filed homestead claim 1880, 160 acres, paid annual tax 1880 to 1886. Here. Maeve's finger traced a section dated 1881. Sarah Latimer, née Foster, paid property tax on 320 acres, eastern ridge boundary, $18 annual, paid 1881, 1882, 1883. Caleb's breath caught. She paid taxes. Every year till she died, Adelaide said. The firelight caught the gray in her hair. Vernon never paid a cent on those acres. We noticed. We always notice. Another woman, Ruth Holloway, thin-faced and sharp-eyed, leaned forward. Vernon filed a deed claim on that same land in 1884, 1 year after Sarah's death. We wrote that down too. She tapped the ledger. The sound was sharp. Funny how a man suddenly owns property he never paid for. This proves fraud, Caleb said. In a just world, yes. Maeve's voice was hard. But judges don't accept women's records as evidence. Call it hearsay. Gossip. Then what good is it? It's corroboration, Adelaide said. You get the Reverend to testify Sarah was married. You get what? You get Isaac to show his maps. We provide the tax record. 3 sources, 3 different proofs. She met his eyes. That's harder to ignore. Caleb looked around the table. 5 women who'd been dismissed, overlooked, called gossipers and busybodies. They'd been building a counter-archive for decades, keeping truth when the law forgot. Why help me? He asked. Because, Ruth said quietly, Vernon did the same thing to my sister, shifted her boundary stakes, claimed her creek access, she couldn't prove it, lost the land. Her jaw tightened. We don't forget. Maeve closed the ledger. The leather cover was worn smooth from years of handling. This ledger's not legal in court, but it's truth. And truth has a way of mattering when light hits it right. She handed Caleb a folded paper. I made a copy, every entry related to Sarah's property. Hide it. Bring it when Judge Harlan arrives. Caleb took it, his throat tight. Thank you. Don't thank us yet, Adelaide said. Thank us when Vernon's in chains. The women returned to their quilting, needles flashing, quiet voices weaving stories into fabric, keeping the truth alive one stitch at a time. Outside, the snow had stopped. The sky was clear, stars visible between the clouds. Caleb walked back to the cabin with the paper folded inside his coat, against his heart, where it felt like armor. Marshal Greer returned on the 5th day. This time his face was grim. The morning sun caught frost on his coat as he dismounted. Got something you need to see. He unfolded a document on Caleb's table, parchment, official-looking, with signatures and a wax seal. The smell of old ink filled the cabin. Indenture contract, Greer said, signed by Sarah Latimer in 1883, binding her son to the guardianship and labor of Thomas Latimer for 10 years upon her death. Caleb's vision blurred. That's a forgery. Maybe, but it's got her signature. Witness marks from 2 county clerks. Greer pointed. His finger left a smudge on the corner where... Vernon filed it this morning, says it's been in his family's records. Just found it. Just found it, Caleb repeated. His voice was flat. Right when he needs it. That's what I thought, too. Greer's eyes were hard. But legally, this gives Vernon custody, unless you can prove it's fake. The ink, Isaac said from the doorway. He stepped inside, snow dusting his shoulders. The cold came with him. Let me see that. Greer handed it over. Isaac held the document to the lamplight, studied the signature, the date, the seal. This ink's too fresh, he murmured. Look, he pointed to the flourish on Sarah's signature. Ink from 1883 would have browned by now, oxidized. This is blue-black, recent. Can you prove that? Greer asked. Not me, but I know a man in Helena, territorial ink inspector, tests documents for the land office when fraud's suspected. Isaac looked at Caleb. We send this to him, he can date the ink chemically. 3 days turnaround. Greer exhaled, his breath steamed. 3 days, and Vernon's pushing for immediate custody transfer. Then stall him, Isaac said. Tell him the document needs territorial verification. That's standard procedure for indenture contracts, isn't it? Greer's mouth twitched, almost a smile. It is now. He took the document back, folded it carefully. I'll send it to Helena today. But Caleb, if this comes back as legitimate... It won't, Caleb said. If it does, Greer continued, I got no choice. Law's law. After he left, Caleb sank into a chair. 3 days, then Vernon finds another trick. Maybe, Isaac said. He poured coffee from the pot on the stove. The smell was bitter, strong. But he's getting sloppy. Forging documents in a rush? That's desperation. Or confidence. Isaac shook his head. Confident men don't forge papers. They use what they've got. He tapped the table. Vernon's running scared. We just need to spook him one more time. James appeared from the back room, hair mussed from sleep. Is the marshal taking me? Not today, son, Caleb said. When? Caleb pulled him close. Not ever if I can help it. But the weight of the promise felt heavier each time he made it. Isaac rode in 3 days later, saddlebags bulging with documents. He spread them across Maeve's dining table. Official territorial records, stamped and sealed. The paper crackled under his hands. Found what we needed, he said, voice tight with satisfaction. Caleb, Maeve, and James crowded close. The smell of fresh bread from Maeve's oven mixed with the mustiness of old documents. Vernon Latimer's surveyor license, Isaac began. He tapped the first document. Issued 1875, suspended 1878 for boundary irregularities. That's territorial code for fraud. Suspended? Caleb's pulse quickened. For 6 months, then reinstated after he paid a fine to the territorial governor. Isaac's lip curled, which is code for bribe. He pulled out another sheet. Suspended again in 1881. Same charge, same outcome. Twice, Maeve breathed. He's been doing this for years. 12 years, minimum. Isaac laid out a third document, a ledger with entries in different hands. This is the Territorial Land Office's complaint log. Between 1878 and 1886, 16 families filed disputes against Vernon's boundary surveys. Every single one dismissed. Why? Caleb asked. Because Vernon's the county surveyor, no higher authority to challenge him except the territorial judge, and Judge Harlan only circuits twice a year. Isaac's finger traced the entries. By the time complaints reach him, families have already lost their land, moved on, or died. Maeve's hands shook. She gripped the edge of the table. 40 properties, you said? Every deed Vernon filed between 78 and 86 is suspect. Isaac's eyes were hard as flint. 40 families he might have defrauded. 40. Caleb stared at the documents, at the weight of 12 years of corruption laid bare. This proves he's a liar. It proves he's a pattern liar, Isaac corrected. That's stronger. One forgery a judge might overlook. 12 years of fraud? That's criminal conspiracy. Will Judge Harlan care? Maeve's voice was tight. Harlan's the one who suspended Vernon the first time, Isaac said. Vernon bribed his way back in, but Harlan remembers. He'll care. James, sitting quietly by the fire, looked up. Will Papa keep me now? The room went silent. The fire popped. Outside, a wagon rattled past. Caleb knelt beside him. Yeah, son, I'm keeping you. Isaac rolled the documents back up, tied them with string. We've got 3 pillars now, my railroad maps, Reverend's testimony, quilting ledger, and now this, proof Vernon's been corrupt for over a decade. When's the judge arrive? Caleb asked. 2 weeks. Can we hold out that long? Isaac met his eyes. We got this far. We'll make it. Maeve touched Caleb's shoulder. Her hand was warm, steady. Vernon's going to fight back. Hard. Let him, Caleb said. He's got lies. We've got truth. But even as he said it, he wondered if truth was enough. Vernon had built his empire on lies for 12 years. What was 2 more weeks to a man like that? Outside, the sun broke through the clouds. Light spilled across the snow, turning it gold. For a moment, the world looked clean, new. James came to stand beside him at the window. Papa? Yeah, son? When this is over, can we go see the oak, the one Mama talked about? Caleb looked down at the boy's upturned face, at the hope still living there despite everything. Yeah, he said. We'll go see it together. And that promise felt like the only true thing in the world. The pounding on the door came near midnight, loud, unsteady. Caleb grabbed his rifle, motioned James to hide under the cot. Open up, Thorne, Vernon's voice, slurred with whiskey. Caleb cracked the door, rifle raised. Vernon swayed on the porch, coat unbuttoned, face flushed. No surveyor's chain, no ledger, just a man unraveling. The smell of whiskey rolled off him like smoke. Come to talk, Vernon mumbled, man to man. You're drunk. Damn right. Vernon pushed past him, stumbling to the hearth. You know what it's like? Keeping this county running, every boundary, every deed, every goddamn fence post. My responsibility. Caleb's finger stayed near the trigger. Get to the point. Sarah. Vernon's voice cracked. He stared at the fire. My niece. She was supposed to marry the man I chose. Good family. Money. He laughed, bitter, broken. Instead, she ran off with some railroad rat who died in a tunnel, left her pregnant, penniless. And you turned her away. I offered help. Vernon spun. His eyes were wild, red-rimmed. Room in my house, food, care, if she signed over her land. His fist hit the mantel. The sound was dull. That land was mine by right. My brother promised it to me, but he gave it to her, a girl. What's a girl need with 320 acres? It was hers, Caleb said quietly. She refused me. Vernon's voice dropped. Moved into that room above the mercantile. Wouldn't speak to me. Worked herself half to death washing clothes, mending shirts. He paused, breath ragged. When she died, I didn't mean for her to die. But you waited, Caleb said, his voice cold as the night air. Waited for her to die so you could take what she wouldn't give. Vernon's face twisted. You don't understand. I built this county, every road, every registry, every... He pointed at Caleb, the gesture unsteady. And now you and that boy, you're going to ruin everything? That boy's name is James. That boy's a problem. Vernon stepped closer, reeking of whiskey and sweat and something sour. And I'm done asking. You hand him over by dawn, or I burn this cabin, with or without you in it. Silence. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind scraped branches against the roof. Get out, Caleb said. Vernon stared at him, swaying. Then he turned, stumbled to the door, and disappeared into the dark, his footsteps uneven on the frozen ground. Caleb stood there, heart hammering, until James crawled out from under the cot. He's scared, the boy whispered. Caleb looked down, surprised. What? The bad man, he's scared. James's eyes were too old for his face. Mama said people hurt others when they're scared of being hurt. Caleb knelt, pulled him close. Your mama was wise. Outside, something metallic clinked on the porch. Caleb opened the door, rifle ready. On the step lay Vernon's surveyor's chain, coiled like a dead snake glinting in the moonlight. Left behind, forgotten, or abandoned. Caleb picked it up. The metal was cold, heavy, each link marked with notches from years of use. Years of measuring false boundaries. He brought it inside, set it by the fire. What is it? James asked. A tool, Caleb said, for measuring land. He looked at the boy. Your land. Dawn came gray and cold. Caleb, James, Maeve, Isaac, and Reverend Holcomb gathered in the boarding house dining room. The table was covered with papers, maps, ledgers, testimony notes. The smell of coffee and cornbread filled the space. Judge Harlan arrives today, Maeve said. Hearings set for noon. Isaac unrolled his railroad survey map. The edges were worn from handling. Let's review. Vernon claims his boundary markers are original 1875 placements. My map shows them 400 yards east of where they are now. Proof of fraud. Reverend? Caleb looked at Holcomb. The old man nodded. His hands trembled slightly. I'll testify I married Sarah Latimer to Daniel Foster in 1882. That makes James legitimate heir to her property. And the quilting ledger, Maeve said, shows Sarah paid taxes on her 320 acres from 1881 to 1883. Vernon never paid. Caleb exhaled. What about the indenture contract? Ink test came back yesterday, Isaac said, grim satisfaction in his voice. Territorial inspector confirmed. Inks from 1887, documents a forgery. Relief flooded through Caleb. So we've got him. If the judge listens, Maeve said quietly, Vernon's got friends, county clerks, merchants who owe him favors. Judge Harlan's fair, Holcomb said. I've known him 20 years. He'll listen. James, sitting beside Caleb, tugged his sleeve. Papa, can I help? Caleb smiled faintly. How, son? I can draw the oak, like Mama drew it. Isaac looked up. You remember what it looks like? James nodded. Maeve gave him paper and charcoal. The boy drew slowly, carefully. A massive oak, trunk split down the middle, one side dead, one side alive, lightning scar running jagged through the center. Lightning hit it when I was little, James said. Mama said it marked where Papa carved their names. Isaac's breath caught. He pulled his map closer, scanned the property line between Vernon's claim and Sarah's recorded deed. His fingers stopped. There, he whispered. LTMR property line, split oak, lightning strike 81. He looked at James's drawing, then at the map. Perfect match. That's it, Isaac said. That oak's on Sarah's property. If we can show the judge this tree still exists, Vernon's boundary fraud is proven. It's still there, Caleb said. I've ridden past it, half-mile north of my fence line. Maeve leaned back, eyes closed. We've got him. Maps, testimony, taxes, forgery proof, and physical landmark. Vernon's not going down quiet, Isaac warned. Man this desperate does desperate things. A knock came at the door. Maeve answered. Marshal Greer stood there, hat in hand. Judge Harlan's in town, he said. Wants to convene at noon. Neutral ground. He looked at Caleb. That means here. Maeve's dining room. We'll be ready, Caleb said. After Greer left, they sat in silence. The weight of what was coming pressed down like snow on a roof. James climbed into Caleb's lap. Will we win? Caleb looked at the evidence spread across the table, at the allies who'd risked everything to help, at the boy whose mother had sewn truth into fabric and hidden it away, trusting someone would find it. Your mama believed in the land remembering, he said, believed in people who help. He held James closer. I believe in that too. Outside, the sun climbed higher, the snow began to melt, water dripped from the eaves, steady, rhythmic, the sound of winter breaking. By noon the room was packed. Townspeople filled every chair, stood against the walls. The air was thick with breath and anticipation and the smell of damp wool. Judge Harlan had arrived, and everything was about to change. Judge Harlan sat at the head of the table, 64, silver-haired, sharp-eyed. He wore a dark coat, plain but well-made. Marshal Greer stood behind him. The room fell silent when he raised his hand. Vernon sat across from Caleb, ledger open, jaw tight. The surveyor's chain was absent, still at Caleb's cabin where he'd dropped it. This tribunal, Harlan began, is to determine legal guardianship of the minor child known as James and to settle disputed property claims related to the estate of Sarah Latimer, deceased. He looked at Vernon. His gaze was steady. Mr. Latimer, you claim guardianship by blood relation and indenture contract. Is that correct? It is, Your Honor. Vernon's voice was controlled, but his hands gripped the table edge. And you, Mr. Thorne, contest this claim? Caleb stood. I do, on grounds that Mr. Latimer's documents are fraudulent, his property claims are false, and his guardianship would endanger the child's life. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The smell of coffee and nervous sweat filled the air. Harlan raised a hand. Silence fell. We'll hear evidence. Reverend Holcomb, you have testimony? Holcomb stood, trembling but resolute. I married Sarah Latimer to Daniel Foster on June 12, 1882. I recorded it in the church register. His voice grew stronger. Daniel died 6 months later in a tunnel collapse. Sarah was pregnant with his child, James. Vernon's face darkened. There's no county record of that marriage. Because, Holcomb said, voice steady now, Sarah feared you'd contest it. She asked me to keep the record in church archives only. Harlan made a note. The scratch of his pen was loud. Mrs. Corrigan? Maeve stood, quilting ledger in hand. This ledger tracks property tax payments in our county for 30 years. Sarah Latimer paid taxes on 320 acres every year from 1881 to 1883. She opened to the marked page. Vernon Latimer paid nothing on those acres until 1884, after Sarah's death. That's hearsay, Vernon snapped. It's corroboration, Harlan said mildly. His tone didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. Mr. Drummond? Isaac unrolled his map across the table. The paper rustled. This is the 1883 Union Pacific Railroad survey. Every property line, every landmark logged. Here, he pointed, is the boundary between Vernon's claim and Sarah's deed, marked by a split oak, lightning struck in 1881. He pulled out a second document, Vernon's county surveyor map. Vernon's map shows his boundary 400 yards west of the railroad survey. That's fraud. Or surveyor error, Vernon said quickly. Too quickly. Not with this. Isaac laid down a third document, the territorial complaint log. 16 families filed boundary disputes against you between 1878 and 1886. Your license was suspended twice for fraud. The room erupted. Voices rose. Someone shouted. Harlan slammed his hand on the table. The sound cracked like a gunshot. Order! Silence crashed down. Vernon's face was white. Those complaints were dismissed. Because, Isaac said coldly, you bribed your way back to office. Harlan's eyes narrowed. Mr. Latimer, explain why your surveyor records contradict railroad surveys, tax records, and witness testimony. Vernon stood. His chair scraped loud against the floor. Your Honor, these people are conspiring to tell the truth, Maeve interrupted. They want the boy's land, Vernon said desperately. Thorne's under eviction. He's using the child to— Eviction notice issued by you, Harlan said, based on a deed you claim supersedes Mr. Thorne's homestead. Do you have the original deed? Silence. Mr. Latimer? It's in county archives, which you control as surveyor. Harlan leaned back. His gaze was iron. Convenient. Vernon's hands shook. Your Honor, I've served this county for 12 years, Harlan said, during which time your license was suspended twice. 16 families filed complaints, and now we have evidence of forged indenture contracts. He tapped the ink inspector's report on the table. The document you filed claiming custody rights over this child? The ink dates to 1887, not 1883. The room held its breath. That's— Vernon's voice cracked. That's impossible. The territorial ink inspector disagrees. Harlan's voice was cold now, final. Mr. Latimer, I'm ordering you to produce the original 1875 deed as you claim gives you ownership of Mr. Thorne's land. You have until I finish hearing testimony. Vernon sat down hard. His face was gray. An hour passed. The county clerk arrived, nervous, sweating. He brought the archive box. Harlan opened it, searched through deeds, registries, certificates. No 1875 deed to Amos Latimer. Mr. Latimer, Harlan said quietly, where is this deed? Vernon stared at the table. His lips moved, but no sound came. Mr. Latimer. It doesn't exist, Vernon whispered. The room exploded. Harlan's hand slammed down again. Explain. Vernon's face crumpled. The land was supposed to be mine. My brother promised it before he died, but he left it to Sarah instead, to a girl. His voice broke. I moved a few stakes, changed a few dates, made sure what was rightfully mine stayed mine. You committed fraud, Harlan said flatly. I kept this county running. Vernon stood, wild-eyed. Every road, every bridge, every family that settled here, I made that happen. And Sarah was going to ruin it with her railroad husband and her he pointed at James, her bastard child. James was legitimate, Holcomb said quietly. I married them. Vernon laughed, bitter, broken. Doesn't matter. She died anyway, and the land— He stopped. His shoulders sagged. The land should have been mine. The land, Harlan said, belongs to her son. Vernon froze. James, sitting beside Caleb, looked up at the judge. His voice was small, but clear. Can I stay with Papa? The room held its breath. The only sound was the drip of melting snow from the eaves outside. Harlan's face softened. Son, what's your name? James. James. The boy looked at Caleb. James Thorne, if Papa wants me. Caleb's throat closed. He pulled James onto his lap. Yes, son, I want you. Harlan made a note, his pen scratched across paper. Then by the authority of Montana Territorial Court, I declare James Latimer, now James Thorne, legal heir to 320 acres deeded to Sarah Latimer and ward of Caleb Thorne. He looked at Vernon. His voice went hard. Your guardianship claim is denied. Your surveyor license is revoked, and you, sir, are under arrest for fraud, forgery, and child endangerment. Marshal Greer stepped forward, irons in hand. The metal clinked. Vernon sagged. I didn't mean— I just wanted what was mine. It was never yours, Maeve said quietly. Greer cuffed Vernon, led him toward the door. The crowd parted. Some looked away, some stared. Vernon's boots dragged on the floor. At the door, he stopped, looked back at James. Sarah loved that boy, he said hoarsely. She shouldn't have, but she did. Then he was gone. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then someone, Silas Grant, the blacksmith, started clapping, slow at first, then others joined. The sound built like thunder. Caleb stood, uncertain. James clung to him. Isaac picked up Vernon's surveyor chain from where Caleb had brought it, held it up. This tool, he said loudly, has been used to steal land for 12 years. Today, we use it to give land back. He looked at Caleb. Let's go measure that oak. They rode out. Caleb, James, Isaac, Maeve, half the town, to the split oak. The tree stood massive against the afternoon sky. One side blackened and dead, one side green with early buds, lightning scar running through the center like a wound that wouldn't heal, carved into the living side, weathered but visible. Daniel plus Sarah, 1882. Isaac used Vernon's own chain to measure from the tree to the existing boundary stakes, 400 yards, exactly where the railroad map said it would be. This land, Isaac said, driving a stake into the soft ground, belongs to James Thorne. The crowd cheered. James's hand was tight in Caleb's. Is it really mine? The boy asked. Caleb knelt. Yeah, son. Your mama made sure of it. James looked at the tree, at his parents' names carved into the bark. Can we come back? Anytime you want. The sun broke through the clouds. Light spilled across the meadow, turning the wet grass gold. For the first time in months, the air smelled of warm earth instead of snow. Spring had come. 1 week later, Caleb and James stood in the corral, watching a young Mustang pace the fence line. The horse was skittish, wild-caught, untrusting, but its eyes tracked them with curiosity beneath the fear. Easy, Caleb murmured, hand on James's shoulder. Let him come to you. The boy held out his palm. Empty. The horse snorted, tossed its head, but stepped closer. Its breath steamed in the cool morning air. A wagon rattled up the path. Maeve and Isaac with Adelaide Grant and Ruth Holloway from the quilting circle. They carried food, tools, fence posts. The smell of fresh bread rode the breeze. Heard you're rebuilding, Maeve called, climbing down. Thought you could use hands. Caleb's throat tightened. You don't have to, We know, Adelaide said, but we're here anyway. By noon, half the town had shown up. Men stringing wire, women cooking over open fires, children playing near the creek where the water ran clear and fast with snowmelt. The same neighbors who'd voted against Caleb now worked beside him, faces shadowed with shame and determination. Silas Grant, the blacksmith, hammered a new gate hinge. Sparks flew. I'm sorry, Caleb, for not speaking up. Caleb wiped sweat from his brow. You're speaking now, that's enough. Marshal Greer rode up mid-afternoon, legal papers in hand. Vernon's trial's set for June. Territorial prosecutor says with the evidence he'll get 10 years minimum. And the land? Caleb asked. James's 320 acres are legally his, free and clear. Greer handed over the deed. The paper was thick, official, sealed with red wax. Judge Harlan signed it yesterday. Caleb stared at it, James's name in careful ink. James Thorne, rightful heir. That evening, Caleb sat James down at the table. The lamp cast soft light across the boy's face. We need to talk about the land. James looked up, worried. Are we losing it? No, son, but we've got more than we can work. 320 acres yours, 160 mine. That's too much for 2 men and a boy? What do we do? I'm going to sell half of your land, 160 acres, use the money to pay off the mortgage, buy horses, stock the barn. Caleb met his eyes. That leaves 160 for you. Your inheritance? When you're grown, it's yours. James thought for a moment. His finger traced patterns on the table. Will we still have the oak? The oak's on your 160. It stays. The boy smiled. Then that's good. Caleb reached across the table, ruffled his hair. You're wise like your mama. Later, as the sun dropped low and turned the sky pink and gold, James stood beside the corral fence, watching the Mustang. Papa? Will you teach me to break horses? Caleb leaned against the rail. The wood was warm from the day's sun. Every morning, son, long as you want. James's hand found his, small fingers wrapped around calloused palm. I like mornings now, the boy said. Caleb looked down at him, at this child who'd come to him half frozen and silent, who now laughed and asked questions and called him Papa without hesitation. Me too, son, he said. Me too. Scene 2, motif lock and epilogue. Sunday morning broke clear and warm, the first true spring day. Caleb and James rode to the boundary oak. The blanket, returned by Marshal Greer after the trial, was folded carefully in Caleb's saddlebag. The tree stood massive and scarred, one side blackened from lightning, the other side green with new leaves. At its base, the old carvings weathered but visible. Daniel plus Sarah, 1882. James dismounted, touched the letters with careful fingers. Papa carved this? Your first papa, Caleb said quietly. The one who loved your mama. James was silent for a moment, then, Can I have 2 papas? Caleb's chest tightened. Yeah, son, you can. He pulled the blanket from the saddlebag, clean, mended, the beeswax seal opened, and the land grant filed safe in territorial records. James took it, ran his fingers over the fine stitching his mama's hands had made. I want to leave it here, James said, so Mama knows I'm safe. Caleb helped him drape it over a low branch. Blue wool bright against dark bark. The wind caught it gently. It fluttered like a flag of peace. From his pocket, Caleb drew his knife. Your turn now. He carved slowly, carefully. Below the old letters, James Thorne, 1887. James traced the fresh cuts with small fingers. It's real now. It's always been real, son. They stood there, silent, the blanket fluttering above them, the smell of warm earth and new grass rising. I brought something else, Caleb said. From his saddlebag, a small apple sapling, roots wrapped in burlap, still damp from the creek. Together they dug a hole at the tree's base. James held the sapling steady while Caleb packed earth around it. The soil was dark, rich, ready. When you're grown, Caleb said, this tree will give fruit, and you'll remember this day. James looked up at him, gray eyes serious. Mama said the land remembers. Do you think she knows I'm safe? Caleb knelt, pulled him close. Yes, son, she knows. They rode home as the sun climbed, the oak standing behind them, witness and promise both, the blue blanket catching light like water. That evening, Maeve brought Sunday supper. Isaac told stories of railroad days, of track laid across mountains, of men who'd worked together to build something lasting. The cabin filled with laughter and warmth, voices layered over one another like music, and for the first time since his wife died, Caleb Thorne felt the word that had eluded him for 5 long years, home. James fell asleep in his chair after dinner. Caleb carried him to the cot, bigger now, with a real mattress, wool blankets without holes. The boy's breathing was deep and even, no rattle, no fever, just the sound of a child sleeping safe. Caleb stood by the window, looked out at the land he'd almost lost, at the barn being rebuilt, at the fence posts standing straight and true. The moon rose full and bright, silver light spilled across the valley. He thought of Sarah, of a woman desperate enough to sew truth into fabric and leave her son to the mercy of strangers, of how she'd believed, had to believe, that someone would find him, would keep him, would love him. We got him, Sarah, Caleb whispered to the night. He's safe now. The wind answered, soft, carrying the smell of apple blossoms that weren't there yet but would be. Come summer, come harvest, Caleb closed his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, he slept without dreaming of graves. There's a thing about land that folks who've never worked it don't understand. It ain't just dirt and grass, it's memory. Every fence post you sink, every stone you clear, every seed you plant, land holds it. Remembers? Caleb Thorne learned that the hard way. He'd buried his wife on that land, thought it would bury him too, slow and cold, one winter at a time. Then a boy came, half frozen, clutching a blanket that held more than warmth. It held truth, and truth, Caleb learned, was the one thing even corrupt men couldn't bury forever. Vernon Latimer spent 12 years stealing what wasn't his, moved stakes, forged papers, convinced himself that because he'd worked the system, he'd earned the reward. But systems break, and when they do, it's the quiet people, the quilting circles, the old railroad men, the preachers with guilty consciences, who remember what the law forgot. By June, Vernon was in territorial prison. His surveyor's chain hung in Isaac's barn, rusted reminder of what happens when a man measures wrong. By July, the apple sapling at the boundary oak had sprouted new leaves. By August, James could sit a horse alone and had stopped flinching when doors opened sudden. And by September, when the first frost came again, Caleb stood on his porch with coffee steaming in his hands and a boy's laughter echoing from the barn and thought, mercy ain't soft, it's the hardest work there is, but it's the only kind that doesn't rot the soul. He finished his coffee, set the cup down, walked toward the corral where James waited, bridle in hand, ready to learn. The land remembered, the boy was safe. And Caleb Thorne, widower, horse trader, father, had found what he'd thought he'd lost forever, a reason to keep waking at dawn.